This is Artificial Fear by Orlando Brew. Chapter 4, Disruption. Fujian would be past its peak by now and beginning its descent toward the northern horizon. Lorna shifted in her sleep, rubbing her pale thigh against his tan one as she tightened her body's grip on his, as if denying his need to leave in her sleep. Watson had to get back to his patrol, even if nothing was happening. It was part of his programming. He reached over to the side of the bed with his battle arm and used its superior strength to grab hold of the mattress edge and pull himself slowly from her grip. As usual, it woke her up. Many nights Watson had spent devising more skillful ways to escape Lorna's grip without waking her, but till now no better strategy had become clear. Till it did, the old anchor and pull method was all he had, even if it didn't work. "You leaving?" Her eyes had not even opened yet. "Have to get back to work." She looked at him with a near smile curving her lips. "Okay," she said, and rolled off of him. Watson slid the rest of the way off the bed. He could feel her eyes on him as he stepped into the small, plastic-walled shower in the corner of the room, turning the lever for the warm water to clean off his exterior. He used the roughness of the battle hand to scrub off her scent from his body, a layer of red grime washing away with it, the red stain of Ranon slipping in through his clothes. No one would really be able to scent her on him except for Max and Brax. The latter was no problem. Brax knew he was here, and he kept his silence. Max would say something. He was like that. Watson stepped from the shower and grabbed one of the small towels hung from a hook on the outside wall of the shower. He dried himself quickly but thoroughly, leaving no area of moisture for Fujian to evaporate when he stepped outside. Lorna watched him. "What are you looking at?" Watson said. "I love your body." She was more awake now. "How's that?" "It's so perfect." "Even this?" He lifted his battle arm for emphasis. She got up and drew near him, her sweaty chest brushing across his artificial one. Her little white hands came up to rest on his chest, then moved up to his left shoulder, while the battle arm was grafted to his body. The skin there was discolored, almost rubbery as it met with the plasteel hulk of the battle arm. Lorna touched the spot where his normal body met the battle arm, and she looked at him, as if expecting some reaction, but he only looked at her. "It's perfect," she said, and then kissed the cool, dark chrome of his battle arm. Her lips were hot. He reached up to touch her face with his normal hand and was not pleased by her temperature. This time, he did not blink his face. "I know." Her hand came up to rest on top of his. "I know." All he could do was nod. She left him naked in the bedroom and went into the other room. Watson dressed swiftly, pulling on tank top and pants first, then socks and boots. The boots tightened and locked as he pulled on his uniform shirt and listened to where Lorna was. She was doing something in the other room, perhaps moving an object a little heavy for her. It was all the time he needed to reach into the chest pocket located on the right side of his uniform shirt, right beneath where his name was inscribed. The small gray card he set down on the bedside table had enough currency to keep Lorna fed for another month. 6 with the rest of the money he had given her. It conciliated him to know that there was a reserve. Lorna was waiting for him on the futon when he left the bedroom, a large brown box sitting next to her. Her robe was tied loosely, and he could see up the heights of her legs to the charms they fenced the way she sat. "Almost ready to go?" she said, to him with a broad smile. "Almost," he replied, buttoning up his drab green uniform shirt. "I have something for you." "For me?" "No, the other android that just fucked the shit out of me," she said. "Oh, that one." "Come here," she said, and tilted her head to the box. "Oh, you got me a box." "Don't be funny. Open it." He activated the razor plate on the index finger of his battle hand and sliced the top of the box open in a single slow pass. Lorna's green eyes met his as he pulled the box open, and he could see a real kind of happiness behind them. Watson looked down at what was in the box, and he saw his reserve go to naught. "Lorna, This better not be what I think it is. I ordered it off a site a few months ago. It got here this morning. Remember, you were saying you wanted one." Watson was angry, but not with her. He reached into the box and pulled out the harness. The brand name, Superlight, was written in bright red letters across the dark gray surface of the harness plate. It was a hover harness. "It's great. I did want one, but we can't afford this." "Why not?" "Well, I don't know if... What if I... There just should be money there for you in case something ever happens to me." Watson did not stammer often. Androids did not stammer often. "What's going to happen to you?" "Well, nothing, but I'm just saying in case." "What case? This is Ranon," Lorna declared. "I know that, but... What if I didn't come back tomorrow, or the day after? What if I never came back? What would you do?" "I would die alone," she said. She said it quickly and with no play. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to do something for you. And I love it. But it has to go back." "Why?" "The money," Watson said. "But it's a gift to you." She seemed so confused and on the verge of feeling bad. Watson was angry that things had worked out this way. But she had to be safe in case something did happen to him. "Lorna, please return it and get the money." She didn't say anything. Watson put the hover harness back into the box and pushed the lid down. Lorna looked at the box, then up at him. Her brow was almost a V. She got up and crossed the room to the entranceway, stood there for a moment, her back to him, then turned and started talking. "I heard a rumor from Jean at the brothel. She said that black cop came in, all tense, mentioned something about crazy androids coming to visit. Said she'd never seen him keyed up like this." Watson sat down where she had been on the futon and played it quiet. "Is something going on? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Everything is okay. Bayer left, and now Caleb is in charge." "Why did he leave? Is it because of this crazy android?" "He got tired of us, I guess," Watson said. "What about the crazy android?" She started to move toward him, and it was like the closer she got, the harder he found it to hide the truth from her. "Some android broke out of prison. They think he might be coming our way." "And?" "Nothing. Just some android. Max and me will bust him up if he comes through here." He was going to bust Nastus up, too, when all this was over. Maybe she could sense that he was lying, even though androids lied better than anyone. Watson had found that women, some women, had the heightened ability to see through lies, as if it were a psychic ability. That, of course, did not compute for androids, since they were artificial mentalities. Or did it? Lorna sat down on his lap and curled up against him. "I love you," Lorna said. Watson felt his programming go blank. "Remember that," she said. He could feel her cheeks moving against his chest as she spoke. "I'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow." He felt her hair with his normal hand and kissed her head. Women liked that. "I know," she said. His programming, his mind, felt strange. It was late when the doorbell rang and got her out of bed. She hadn't been sleeping so much as trying, but at least that was some kind of rest. Angel knew who this was at her door. It was obvious. It only irritated her that he had not come earlier. She opened the apartment door, and the heat of the hallway swept in on her, momentarily unbalancing her air-conditioned environment. Caleb's eyes looked at her under a troubled brow, and she motioned him in. He let a cloak and a pair of goggles drop down near the door as he headed straight for the battered maroon couch and settled down. Angel watched him closely, following him to the couch with her hands in the pockets of her sweatpants. "Are you okay?" She sat down to his right on the couch, facing him. Caleb lay back, sprawled across the couch, looking as tired and dejected as Angel had ever seen him. "No, I'm not fine at all. You want to talk about it?" "I'm afraid we have to." He glanced over at her, then away. She knew then that something was very wrong, something more than just the obvious news of the day. Angel's thoughts went to the worst first. I slept with Janie tonight. Don't think I wanted to, but it ended up that way. The tone of his voice was lower than usual, to the point of almost not sounding like him. Angel felt a pause in her mind as her thoughts tried to realign themselves around what Caleb had just told her. You had sex with her? Yeah, he said. So what, you're coming here now to get some more? Her thoughts were aligning themselves in fury, because she felt hurt. Her boyfriend had cheated on her with his wife. The ridiculousness was not lost on her, but she put that away for much later. No, I came here to apologize. Well, if you felt so bad about it, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. It wasn't supposed to happen. Well, it did, Caleb. She's been back now for almost 4 months, and you still can't kick her out, and now you're sleeping with her. I mean, I should just pack it in on this one, and let you two have each other. I'm not sleeping with her. I had sex once, and it was wrong, and I admit that. His volume was rising. Great, you know it's wrong. I'm so proud of you, but now I'm still feeling pretty shitty. She brought her knees up and hugged them to her. It felt as if her stomach had suddenly lost its bottom, and all of her might just fall down through it. I'm sorry. The line of his jaw was hard. She could see the way he was gritting his teeth through the skin. She wanted to touch his face and ease the strain he was putting on his jaw. She wanted to just hold him. The reality was that she was hurt, though, and he was the cause. After months of waiting for him to make a stand, he had screwed her over, when she was the one who just wanted to be there for him. Go home, Caleb. She got up and started leaving, but he grabbed her by the wrist and held her there. What? I'm sorry. That's not enough. What, you need me to prove it? Get me a good-sized knife and you can keep a finger. She couldn't tell if he was joking or not. He didn't look up at her. His eyes were on her bare feet, his hand hot and firm around her small wrist. Go home, she said. No. Tell me to leave, but I'm not going back to that apartment. I don't live there anymore. Her eyes were getting wet now, and she could feel the tears coming on. She spun around and slapped him across his left cheek. Caleb winced from the strike, and then slowly tilted his head up to look up at her. She turned away to hide her face, her tears. This really fucking hurts, Caleb. I thought we were something. We are, he said, standing up. I made a mistake tonight, and now I'm trying to fix it. How are you going to fix it? You already fucked her. She looked over her shoulder at him to see his reaction. His eyes were big and round, the vivid blue focused on her. I came here to tell you and ask you to forgive me. I'm not ever going back to that apartment. Not ever going back to her. What took you so long to come to this decision? Why now? Because you think I might leave you? She turned slightly to get a better look at him. Well, aren't you? I love you, you fucking bastard. I don't want to leave you. I want to be with you. She sat down on the small table across from the couch and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. You know, I've been there for you as much as I could. I've liked you from the first day you got here, and when she left, I thought we could have something real. We do have something real. No, we don't. You want to be with her. Why else would you be waiting so long to get rid of her? You don't want to get rid of her. I do. She's what you want. I'm just some consolation prize. He dropped to his knees before her and grabbed her hands. She could see her own tear-stricken face in his eyes, her own dark expression. Could he then see the scared look in his eyes and hers? I made a mistake. Please don't leave me. You're married. I was never really there, Angel told herself. You've been with me since she left, watching over me. I've been thinking a lot about what you are to me, and if you might be some kind of rebound. Thought a lot about how I felt about her too, what really matters to me. And you realized it was her? Will you shut up? I'm trying to tell you I fucking love you here, and you keep cutting in and tell me how much I love my wife, when frankly, I could see the bitch die right now and not give two shits. So you want to leave me? Fine, but don't think for a second we weren't together. Caleb climbed to his feet and went for his goggles and cloak. Where are you going to go? He had already picked up his garments, but paused and looked back at her. The station. You hurt me. I know, Caleb said. It's late. I know. Neither of us is leaving. Got that? This isn't over. We aren't going to figure it out tonight. Her eyes were sore and dry by now, snot trying to embarrass her in drips. Angel got up, arms holding herself as if she might fall apart if she did not hold tightly. Caleb watched her come around the couch to him and looked away when she came to a stop right in front of him. Do you love me? Yes. Say it. I need to hear it. I love you. I'm sorry. Sorry won't fix this. Angel, He faltered, and she could see a buildup of moisture on his bottom eyelids. She couldn't explain why she did it, but she reached out and embraced him. His crying was low and abrupt, and she held on to him till it passed, his face buried between her shoulder and neck. Sleep on the couch, she said. Stay here. He pulled away from her and looked at her in surprise and confusion. You hurt me, but I can't let you sleep at the station. Stay here. Angel took his hand and led him back to the couch. The living room was too tense. Angel felt as if she would suffocate soon if she didn't defuse this. She couldn't just let this go, though, could she? Could she believe him? Or was this the end of them? Would she be stupid to leave, or even stupider to stay? I wish it was 4 months ago, she said. Things were better. It still can be that way. No, it can't. But as soon as she finished telling him that, she knew that it was a question to her and not a statement. Caleb lay his head across her lap, and she let him. She ran her fingers through his damp brown hair and quelled the urge to yank on it in frustration. What did she do now? They fell asleep like that, her hand across his head, his arms around her legs. Watson felt odd when he got back to the station. Too much was happening, and he almost wished that things were still boring. Lorna weighed heavily on his mind, even more so than on the android that was on its way to kill him. She had incited a response in him that he could not easily put a name to, and it was clogging a lot of his processing. She had said she loved him. What did that mean? Was this why androids and humans were kept emotionally apart by law? He left the patrol hover on the road before the station and headed straight for the basement where Brax was waiting for him. Max was just coming up the steps from the basement with a gray duffel under his arm when Watson got to the stairway. You'll never believe who I sparred with yesterday, Max declared proudly. Who? Brax, Max said. You got him out of the basement? He just showed up and beat you up, didn't he? Yeah, he did, but only because it was straight-on physical attack. If I had my gear, he would have used his hardware and blown your head off, Watson finished the statement Max would not make. Max shrugged the comment off and took off his sunglasses. You okay? Yeah, fine. Watson crossed his arms across his chest, big over small. You look a little spooked. Polar getting to you? No, Max. Not yet. Max laughed, but Watson hadn't meant it to be funny. Okay. You leave the hover out front? Watson nodded and let his arms drop to his side as he passed Max down the stairs. Max turned to watch him go and put his sunglasses back on with a smile. See you later, Watson. Watson waved unenthusiastically and continued on. Brax was sitting at his workstation facing the door when Watson entered the basement. The battle android was stooped over, but straightened as Watson approached him, the sound like two plates of rough metal grinding against each other slowly. You ready? Watson said. Affirmative. He held the smooth orb of the war cell in his hands. Okay, hook me up. Watson began to unbutton his shirt as Brax cleared the desktop of his workstation, leaving out only the tools he needed. When Watson had removed all the clothing from his upper body, Brax motioned him to lie on the workbench. The plastic was cool against his back as he lay down across the surface of the workstation. Not long ago, he had been baking in the sun. Brax, tell me you do know exactly what you are doing. I am fully educated in the process of cell transplantation. Just remain lax, and this will be over in a few minutes. Brax stood over him. His antennae leaned forward in an array of spikes. Some alarms may go off in your body during the process, but ignore them. It is normal. Furthermore, when the cells are replaced, it will take a period of time for your body to adjust to the power flow, so you will be dormant. When you awake, you may be somewhat disorientated. Try to remember to remain calm. Brax delivered the information with his usual metallic tenor, and it made Watson feel a little better. The battle android wasn't worried. "What happens if I'm not calm?" Watson asked, looking up at Brax's red eyes hovering far above him. "You may get worked up and attack out of alarm. It has happened. The war cell changes things. The difference can be hard to handle at first." "Why would I attack anyone?" "From memory, I did it just to know I could." His voice deepened slightly, and the metallic tone eased off a little. "I am sure that this will go fine. Ready?" Brax's fingertips were rough against his chest, the huge hands lightly scrutinizing his skin systematically. The points were next to invisible for anyone untrained to locate, but for those in the know, and especially for those in the club, the points were familiar. Each of the 10 gray plasteel armored fingers fixed on a point in Watson's chest and firmly pressed down. In the corner of Watson's vision, a blue warning light went off. He was opening up. Watson lifted his head forward to see the crack slowly forming from his belly button to the nape of his neck, the skin parting to reveal a soft blue light beyond it. The blue glow reflected in Brax's eyes and made everything beyond the two of them darken slightly in the glare. The huge plasteel hands fixed onto each side of the partition in his body and began to work the halves apart slowly. It was a neutral sensation. It wasn't as if he was being torn open. The process was following set guidelines. If only human bodies could be so accommodating. Brax worked the artificial skin back to reveal the metal plates underneath, a polished blue chrome protective underlayer of his skin. The battle android found the same 10 points, now etched in black circles across the blue chrome, and pressed down on them again. The metal plates slowly spread apart, opening out like a set of double doors, silently and smoothly. "I am going to connect you to the station's power grid now while I transfer the cells," Brax reported, picking up a large gray and yellow plug with a heavy black cable connected to it. Watson couldn't quite see down into himself, but he wanted to see the inner workings of his body, but Brax had told him to be lax, not to strain anything. Watson lowered his head and looked up at the dark ceiling. Brax standing over him, the blue glow of his innards bathing everything. Brax reached into him with the plug, and a low clicking noise followed shortly. His vision went blank for a moment. He felt a surge of force through his body, and his limbs tensed, then went limp. His vision returned. Brax had a rough gray hand on his forehead, while the other hand was held above the open cavity of his body. "I am going to remove the cell now. Remain calm." Watson tried to nod, but his systems felt backwards, and he was afraid in trying to nod he might kick his leg or something else. Brax moved both hands over his body and slowly began to work at something Watson couldn't see. He figured it probably wasn't easy to just pull a cell out. There was, after all, multiple connection points to deal with in the process. Then, of course, there was the slight matter of an activated cell's explosive nature. A live cell had the same element as a bomb, except that it was more powerful and more fragile. Cells could not be deactivated while in an android's body, so they had to be taken out and then quickly powered down for safety's sake. Brax made a gratified robotic groan, and Watson could hear popping and hissing noises from his chest. With each noise he felt weaker until they came to a halt, and Brax began to pull his hands out of the body cavity. Watson shifted his eyes down and looked on as his figurative heart was removed. It was blue, more vibrant than any blue he had ever seen, and active as if it were in a flux of shades. Brax held the cell in both hands, a white milky fluid slowly dripping off of it thickly, and looked down to Watson's face. "Don't lose that," Watson said, surprised at how weak his voice sounded. The insect-like head nodded, and Brax began to step away from Watson's body to deactivate the cell. Watson followed the cell with his eyes, immersed in its fluctuating light. Human beings spoke of the heart as the seat of emotion, when in fact it did nothing but pump blood through the meat of their body. In that light, Watson wondered what that made of his cell. It was in many ways an android's heart. Could it then be the proverbial seat of their emotions, in much the same way a heart was for a human being? Watching Brax handle his cell, Watson was suddenly filled with a great longing to have the thing back inside of him. Brax, he started to say, but faltered off. The battle android paused in its actions and looked down at him, the blue glow of the cell already dimming slightly. It will take a few moments for it to deactivate, Brax said. The blue wasn't swirling anymore. It was fading out, allowing the dim lighting of the basement to come back into view. There was a crash as the basement door shot open, and Max leaped through, yelling Brax's name. Watson saw Max, then looked back to Brax, and the cell was no longer in his hand. It was falling, a dim blue light, beyond his vision to the light gray concrete of the floor, no doubt. Max made a noise of surprise, and no doubt his face held a matching expression, but Watson didn't take his eyes from where he had seen the cell last. A second later, he heard it strike the ground. It was a sound like glass shattering against metal. The effect was instantaneous. Watson watched the blue light come up, bright and active again, shot through with rivulets of red and white. It spread out in every direction. Multiple warning lights were going off all around his vision, but he could see nothing but the blue explosion. It expanded past Brax and then Max, and it got to him. His vision went blue, then black, and the warning lights stopped, and he wasn't there anymore. Angel had left Caleb sleeping on the couch, but he was still in her mind. He was right there next to her, hurting her and frustrating her, even as he slept on the couch, and she walked to the station. Chris saw her approaching from the steps of the station and waited for her, the hood of her light blue cloak down to reveal her dirty blonde hair under the fading light of Fujin. The day was calm of winds, which brought Angel some satisfaction to be free of the swarming red sands for now. She pushed the hood of her own cloak back and pulled the scarf from her face. "Good morning," Chris said, the corners of her mouth pinched. "Not really, Chrissy." Angel came to a halt beside the girl on the steps of the station and sighed heavily. "What did he do?" "He? Come on, we both know you only give a shit about two things, and you're in one piece. So what did the other shit do?" Her tone was concerned but mild, sedate in that way Chris was. "He slept with his wife," Angel said. "That fucking asshole." Chris was silent, watching her, the smile gone completely from her face. "I know, he is still married to her, but I thought we had something, some kind of monogamy, I guess." "Sorry, Angel, Whatever she said went unheard under the massive explosion that rocked the station, shaking the concrete and steel so violently that the red dust shook off. The double doors of the station burst open and a haze of thick black smoke gushed out. Chris dove down for cover, pulling her hood down, followed by Angel as the cloud of black beset them. The reverberation of the explosion moved across the tightly packed buildings around the station and shattered windows. "Polar?" Chris yelled. Angel looked to where Chris was huddled, her light blue cloak a dusty black. "He's early!" She pulled her pistol as she got unsteadily to her feet and quickly scanned the immediate area before the station. Chris started to get up, but had to pause at her knees in a wave of violent coughing. "You okay?" Angel yelled. "What?" Chris yelled back, between coughs. At this point, Angel noticed the intense ringing in her ears, dimming the sound of the world. Chris got to her feet, taking quick, uneasy breaths, her face covered in soot. "I think I breathed in smoke." "Stay here," Angel yelled back. "Call the fire department." It took Chris 2 repetitions to catch it all, but as soon as she did, Angel headed on. The lobby of the building was covered in a layer of soot, but otherwise undamaged. In fact, everything seemed to be undamaged beyond the soot. Angel came to a halt near the stairs, the intense heat coming from the basement keeping her from going on. There was a noise from the lounge down the hall, and she took aim only to see Nastus covered in soot, with his automatic rifle braced to his shoulder. "The fuck was that?" he boomed in a voice of surprised anger. "No idea, but it came from down there." She tilted her head in the direction of the basement stairs. Nastus approached the stairs and went down a few steps, then backed up quickly. "It's hot as Fujin down there." "Polar?" Don't know. The sound of sirens could be heard now, blaring out in front of the station. Nassus coughed a few times and wiped his face with the back of his left hand. His eyes were bloodshot and worried. Angel looked down the stairs to where smoke was still rising and suddenly wondered what the maximum survival temperature for androids was. Max's body felt as if it was lying out under Fujin during a solar flare. The heat dampeners throughout his body virtually exhausted from the strain. When his eyes opened, all he could see was burning file cabinets. He managed to pull himself out from under them, forcing several chunks of flaming cabinet out of the way upon his liberation. His skin was registering massive damage, but his internals were merely shaken, which meant he was basically fully operational. Max dragged himself up on top of the wreckage that had buried him and looked down at his hands. The skin of his palms was bubbling and red, soggy through the length of his fingers, and just plain melted and dripping at the fingertips. "Brax? Watson?" he called out. "Find his body!" Brax's voice was so loud it registered like an explosion in Max's ears. "The plug fell out. He is going to burn out. Find his body!" Max zoned in on the battle android tearing through the wreckage, his plasteel armor slightly darker but otherwise unscathed. His red eyes were so bright they emitted soft beams through the black smoke that clouded the air, moving across the wreckage of the basement to end on Max's face. "Find him, Max, or I will tear you into spare parts for this." Max took a step back. Brax continued ripping through the rubble. A moment later, Max was searching through the debris, leaving pieces of his skin as he dug. What exactly had happened wasn't fully processed yet, but he knew that he had done something wrong and that there would be repercussions. He might have considered it further, but he realigned all systems on searching the rubble for any sign of Watson. Right now, Watson was all that mattered. Max climbed across the burning debris quickly, searching for any points of reference to Watson's position. He could see no sign of him, though. "Found it! Have you found him yet?" Brax's voice sounded unlike him. It made Max attentive and obedient, a little daunted as well. "Still searching," he reported back, scanning a greater area of the basement with his eyes. Then he saw it, the glint of darkened chrome, hidden by shards of steel and concrete. "There!" Max pointed the glint out. Brax leaped across the basement and plunged his good arm into the wreckage as if it were water. A moment later, the battle android pulled a body from the rubble, its chest cavity open and dark. "Make sure his chest is clean," Brax said, setting the body down. Max went to work right away, pulling out small chunks of concrete and shattered plastic. When he looked up, Brax was holding an orb that was glowing a brilliant purple. The purple seemed to swirl within the confines of the orb, growing brighter by the second. Max immediately recognized it as a war cell. He had always wanted one. "What happened, Brax?" "You scared me. Watson's body is fueling out the remains of his power in its system. He's dying." Brax kneeled beside Watson's body and slowly lowered the purple orb into his open chest cavity. "His cell was partially powered down when you got here. If it had been at full power, it is possible that we would not be here right now." The war cell was a tight fit, but enough space remained for Brax to get his fingers in around it and make the proper attachments. "Why was his cell out?" Max said. "We were replacing it with a war cell." Brax closed Watson's chest panels and looked up at Max. "For Polar." "It nearly destroyed us." "Yes," Brax said to him. Watson's face was hard to recognize. The skin was spongy and melted away in places to expose the metal backing. The protective metal casing around the eyes was exposed in one eye socket and buried in the other where the skin had fused shut over the eyelid. Max could only hope that it was all surface damage like his own. "If you scare anyone in this station again, Max, I will turn you off." The red eyes beamed down on Max. "Watson will be okay. However, the extent of the damage is hard to estimate till he is back online. If he had died, you would have followed." The threat hung in the city air between them. The basement was destroyed. Caleb sat up all of a sudden, to the sound of the apartment phone ringing. He looked at his watch. It was barely 9. He had the impression that the phone had been ringing for quite some time now. His back was sore, and his eyes were not fully open, but he slid across the couch and picked up the phone, even though it wasn't even his phone. "Caleb, get down here," Angel boomed. "What's wrong?" "There's been an explosion in the basement." "Polar?" "We don't know. I don't think so. NASA said he heard Max and Brax yelling, but it's still too hot to get down there." "I'm coming." Caleb dropped the phone onto the cradle and picked up Nassus's cloak and goggled on the way out the door. His stomach was in a tight knot, and his eyes were wide open now, sleep left behind. He was at a run before he even got to the front door of the apartment building.